When authorities received a missing persons report in Lompoc, California on October 14, 2025, they expected a fresh trail. What they found instead was a gap in time so vast it redefined the term missing. 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard had not been reliably seen in over a year. Her own mother, Ashlee Buzzard, was the last person seen with her, but not before they embarked on a desperate cross-country road trip. A trip where both mother and daughter wore wigs, where license plates were swapped in the dead of night, and where, investigators believe, somewhere between the deserts of Utah and the plains of Nebraska, Melodee Buzzard simply vanished. This is not a search for a recently lost child. This is an investigation into a year of calculated silence and deliberate deception.
The disappearance of Melodee Buzzard is rooted not in a sudden incident, but in a long, tragic history of parental instability. The story of the lost girl truly begins with a stark, unsettling claim. Melodee's paternal grandmother, Lily Dennis, told authorities that Ashlee Buzzard was actively trying to cut off the 9-year-old from the entire world. The grandmother's fears were not unfounded. Sources confirmed that years prior, Ashlee's struggle with mental health led social services to step in. To prevent Melodee from entering the foster care system, the child was placed with Dennis, who was already moving forward with formal adoption proceedings. Lily Dennis recalled the moment with genuine joy, saying, "We were so happy when social services called us and told us that they were going to place the baby with us." But that period of stability was tragically brief. In 2021, following her release from a mental hospital, Ashlee Buzzard returned to her daughter's life and regained custody. From that point on, according to Dennis, the isolation began, and the grandmother had not been allowed to see Melodee. She described the mother with chilling clarity, recalling her first meeting with Ashlee. "She doesn't look like she's normal. Something's wrong with this lady." This decades-long familial conflict, the struggle between a grandmother fighting for stability and a mother fighting to isolate her child, was the unstable foundation beneath the life of Melodee Buzzard. But even the grandmother's fears couldn't prepare the family for the shocking timeline that police would uncover.
When the school reported Melodee missing in October 2025, they assumed a short absence. They couldn't know they were starting an investigation into a disappearance that had already lasted 12 months. And the trail of evidence that police finally found led not to a quiet disappearance, but to a calculated plot involving disguises and a frantic flight across state lines. But where was Ashlee going, and why was she trying so hard to hide her daughter? We continue our search after the break.
The formal investigation was launched on October 14, 2025. A school administrator, noticing Melodee's prolonged absence, contacted the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. What followed was the crucial confirmation that Melodee, who was homeschooled, had not checked in since October 2024, confirming the grim reality. The 9-year-old had been off the grid for a full year. Investigators immediately focused on Ashlee, the only person who knew Melodee's true location. Their search quickly led them to surveillance footage from a rental car location in Lompoc, California, dated October 7th. This video confirmed that Ashlee and Melodee were together and alive on that date. But the images also provided the first, deeply disturbing sign of intentional deception.
In the surveillance video, both Ashlee and Melodee are clearly seen wearing wigs. Melodee's hair, normally curly and brown, was manipulated to appear darker and straighter than her natural hair. The use of intentional disguises strongly suggested that Ashlee was not merely traveling, but attempting to flee or evade detection from the start. Investigators even suspect Ashlee swapped her own wig during the trip to further alter her appearance. From Lompoc, the mother and daughter quickly covered vast distances. Detectives determined they drove a rented Chevrolet Malibu as far as Nebraska, with a return trip cutting through Kansas. Melodee was last captured on camera on October 9th, 2 days after they began their journey, near the Colorado-Utah border. But the disguises were only the beginning of Ashlee's efforts to become invisible.
The rental car itself revealed a layer of calculated planning that shocked investigators. On October 8th, while traveling across state lines, the Chevrolet Malibu was observed bearing a New York license plate. This plate was unauthorized. It did not belong to the rental car or to Ashlee. Authorities strongly believe that this swapped plate was used specifically to avoid detection. The original California license plate was only allegedly placed back on the vehicle when it was eventually returned to the rental agency. This action elevated the case from a missing child scenario to a deliberate act of evasion, carried out with foresight and intent. But the central question remained unanswered. Where was Melodee?
Melodee was confirmed to be with her mother near the Utah-Colorado border on October 9th. Yet, according to the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office, somewhere along the subsequent route, a path that wound through Utah, Arizona, and Nevada, detectives state with certainty that Ashlee was no longer with Melodee. This means the 9-year-old girl was separated from her mother, possibly in the midst of her mother's desperate, deceptive cross-country flight. Despite the mounting evidence of intentional concealment and evasion, when investigators finally confronted Ashlee, they were met with an absolute wall of silence. Ashlee has remained completely uncooperative with authorities and has refused to provide any verifiable explanation regarding Melodee's location or welfare. The search continues, bolstered by the involvement of the FBI, yet the mother, who holds the key to the entire mystery, remains silent.
The mother's refusal to speak left the case locked tight. But weeks after the investigation began, a stunning, completely unrelated crime suddenly threw Ashlee Buzzard back into the spotlight. This incident, a desperate, violent confrontation in her own home, did more to break the mother's silence than weeks of police investigation ever could. We'll tell you how a local paralegal ended up at the center of the Melodee Buzzard case and what Ashlee Buzzard allegedly confessed to him next.
The critical break in the case didn't come from tracking the movements of the swapped license plate or following the trail of the disguises. It came on November 7, 2025, when Ashlee Buzzard was arrested at her home in Lompoc. The charge was shocking: felony false imprisonment. This arrest was for a crime completely unrelated to the disappearance of her daughter. The victim was a local paralegal who had reportedly reached out to Ashlee to assist with the search for Melodee.
The victim alleged that during their meeting, Ashlee became visibly distressed after sharing information she appeared to regret disclosing. In a frantic turn of events, Ashlee allegedly pulled out a box cutter, locked the doors, and prevented the man from leaving her home. This desperate act of false imprisonment resulted in her immediate arrest.
But it was what happened during that terrifying confrontation that gives investigators a critical new piece of information. The paralegal claimed that in the midst of her distress and desperation, while holding him captive, Ashlee Buzzard revealed Melodee's location and even named who the child was with. While authorities have not confirmed the veracity of this confession, the sheer desperation exhibited by Ashlee Buzzard, culminating in an alleged armed false imprisonment immediately after disclosing information she regretted disclosing, suggests a woman pushed to her breaking point, finally unable to sustain the massive web of secrecy she had woven around her daughter for a year. The woman who used disguises and switched plates to sever her daughter from the entire world now faces charges for a desperate act that may have finally revealed the one secret she fought so hard to keep hidden. Ashlee Buzzard has since been released from jail under conditions that include wearing a GPS monitor and has pleaded not guilty to the false imprisonment charge. The question now is not just where Melodee is, but whether the information Ashlee regretted disclosing is the key to finally bringing the 9-year-old home.
The case of Melodee Buzzard is a haunting portrait of intentional disappearance, an active effort to render a child invisible. From the removal of the child from her loving grandmother in 2021, to the 1-year gap in her welfare checks, to the wigs and the swapped license plates used during their final journey, every action points toward a calculated plan. Ashlee Buzzard's subsequent refusal to cooperate and her eventual outburst, the alleged armed confinement of an acquaintance, paints a picture of a mother consumed by a secret she could no longer bear. The search for Melodee continues, fueled by the hope that the desperate words spoken during a moment of profound regret will finally lead detectives to the at-risk child. For now, the silence of Ashlee Buzzard remains the loudest piece of evidence in this tragic mystery.